Good afternoon, everyone. Beautiful people. Let's start from the beginning. This world, this beautiful world, is filled with wonderfully talented people. This country is filled with gloriously, amazingly kind people. And there are people like my friend Anne, who I've mentioned before, goes out to Uganda for the orphans, who don't get recognised for their work. There are talented people whose talents are undervalued. There are those people who campaign all of their life for human rights who go unheard. There are far more people out there doing good in this world than there are people doing bad. And sadly, it is the case that those who do good have come across one or a few who do bad and who hurt others. And so it causes for all who are doing their best to become cynical that there are more people like themselves in the world. And we must question what it is that has made us all so cynical. Is it a belief that no change will ever possibly come for the good of all? And we should wonder how many slaves continued that they must slave for their master, and believe that people like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela could not make a difference, and so they stayed loyal to the slavery system. Once in a lifetime there comes a time when one man suddenly captures the imagination and vision of thousands. And in this lifetime, this man is Jeremy Corbyn. And I think that the time has come when we're ready to stand up for who we are. We are all love. We are all made of love. You are all perfect examples of one another, reflecting off of one another. But there will always be those who resist who they truly are. And those people in fear are noticeable by their necessity to battle against good causes and believe that they are not possible because they fear the system. They often fear that the system will do so much harm to them if they get found out for speaking up for themselves. We know what the system does and how it is so self-serving by now, but people are just too afraid to go against it. They believe lies told to them that the one who can make those changes has no chance and is unelectable. It's how they've done this for centuries, the same old story, and it's about time we broke free from this belief and rise for ourselves. We need to be vigilant. We must keep an eye on what's getting passed through Parliament. For example, the TTIP issues. Previously, I've taken it upon myself to keep a close eye on petition sites. We have to make sure that certain things aren't getting sneaked through because they seem to think that countries are made great by being hateful, war-minded. We must be aware of these plotters attempting to gain power for their leaders and of course for themselves. They are all no less slaves to the same old story. According to Labour List, a trusted site I recommend for you all, Labour MPs will tonight debate whether to bring back shadow cabinet elections. I'm aware who is behind this. It's Tom Watson. Another slave in fear, of course, but his actions will end up working against him. He continues the same old story of how Jeremy Corbyn is unelectable. You see, these people are so blinded by their own party's success that they can't even believe in it or their own leader. Now, I'm not going to remotely be able to pronounce this name, but I do apologise. I'll have a go. It's Sakuru Bongwi Munhowansvaki, the hard-landing, sorry. I've heard is now challenging him on deputy leader position. Anyway, Joke of the Year says that Sakuru the hard landing were, they said, party insiders were vetting thousands of last-minute sign-ups and will tell independent vote counters to delete ballots from their system. Labour will carry on checking as votes flood in for Corbyn, Burnham, Cooper and Kendall. Labour will order infiltrators, voters to removed even after they've been cast in the leadership election, party sources had revealed. The party will carry on vetting people right up until September the 10th voting deadline to stop stooges and entrists taking over the race. Insiders say that means that they will tell independent vote counters to strip out individual ballots if they suspect foul play. For example, if a Tory stooge mocks Labour by posting their paper on Twitter, but they're not just purging Tories, they're also purging Greens and others who are of the rightful opinion that Jeremy Corbyn's version of Labour politics includes green politics. Unlike Theresa May, who abolished the Department of Energy and Climate Change and merged its responsibilities into the new Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, this country is also under increasing pressure to ratify the Paris climate change deal, which has been backed by the US and China again all the time. The Tories always stand by United States vision. And unlike Owen Smith, backed by the Union GMB, Corbyn's Labour is anti-fracking and anti-nuclear war. The Labour leader says a new body is required to carry out cutting-edge research to take advantage of the market for renewable energy. This advanced research agency will attract the best minds from the UK and across the world as part of a plan to increase spending on energy research. Again, he's talking about using creative and amazing minds of the UK to bring about better changes for our future and our children's futures. My pledge, he says, is to establish a dedicated advanced research agency will help tackle the global social challenge of climate change and make fundamental breakthroughs in energy science. It will put the UK at the best possible place to take advantage of the rapidly growing global renewable energy market forecast to reach 630 billion worldwide by 2030, he said. So here again, he's looking ahead. He's looking to our children's futures. Whereas we've got the Tories and Owen Smith's version of Labour, who is still stuck in shale gas and fracking and these holes that are falling in all over the place in our roads. And apparently there's been one that's fallen in at Gatwick recently. I believe it was Gatwick anyway. Corbyn's team said a Labour government would commit to at least a doubling of R&D spending on energy research as part of a commitment to boost national, public and private sector research funding to the OECD target of 3.5% of GDP by 2030. So on the other hand, Owen's team continues to purge Labour members, and that's where their focus is lying wholly on attacking members of the Labour Party, whilst Jeremy Corbyn is continuing his work, what he's supposed to be doing, and continuing to make sure that this country remains great and is looking ahead. Tom Watson is preparing a bid to strip Jeremy Corbyn of his power base by changing how Labour elects its leaders. Watson is set to create an overhaul of Labour Party's rules at the National Executive Committee meeting, and that's the NEC. The deputy leader apparently wants to scrap the one-member, one-vote system used for electing Labour leaders and restore the old system, which gave an equal say to party members, trade unions and Labour MPs. These reforms would also restore shadow cabinet elections, removing further power from Jeremy Corbyn and the voters and members and giving them, the MPs, more power. Again, this man is afraid. It's a fear. This is fear-based, and this is where his sole focus is. His sole focus is not on the people, it's not on policies, it's not on opposing anything that the Tories is doing. It is actually just opposing the Labour Party and the members. According to Watson, apparently, he sees the reforms as a way to reunite the party, but it's a clear move to self-protect himself and his own position, and that of those who have resigned from the opposition once again. This plan will, of course, be opposed by Jeremy Corbyn, whose power base relies upon his support of party members and voters. The rule change would dent his prospects in any future leadership contest, but, in my opinion, unless they remove enough membership votes or stop members voting, they will still not succeed because there are so many of us. One source said it is do or die. Assuming Corbyn wins the leadership election, which he will, they will move to tighten their grip. Apparently, it's been said that they, I presume that means the CLP, will stuff the NEC with new supporters and then force a vote of no confidence in Labour's General Secretary, Ian McNicol. But if these plotters plan a power grab by MPs, they'll only have themselves to blame if CLP members exercise a greater say over who their MP should be. Ian McNicol is the one who is in charge of this voting system, which is now purging voters and members. And there's a petition out right now for him to be sacked, which I myself has signed. And I would urge all those who haven't already to do that too. And I'll put a link under this video for those of you who haven't yet, if you wish to, of course. Where they say that the NEC will be stuffed with new supporters, we need to ask how people are even going to be forced to get stuffed in. People don't do things they don't want to, and nobody forces anyone. That's the whole point. And if we have leaders who don't want things done, they don't want things done on their behalf, that's being forced on them. That's when this sort of thing happens. It's like the Iraq War cannot be seen as the people's choice and can't be blamed on the people, as a whole country should not be blamed for a decision of one, especially when there's been so many people, sort of with their placards saying we don't want this war, we don't want this to happen. We're led by these tyrant leaders who go ahead and make such decisions on our behalf, and this is us being a slave to this system and these leaders who, in effect are our masters. What happened to power in numbers, and that being the rule and reason for voting in the first place? This is becoming increasingly blurred. You can have votes and call it a democracy. Then when you don't like what the people vote for or change the rules, so the outcome becomes different. This will cause public outcry from everyone, and rightly so. The same with the Brexit vote. They don't like what the people want, so they try for a second referendum, or that's what Owen Smith's plans are. In effect, they don't agree with the people and how we want our country run. Their concern is their own positions. They're in fear. Had they not turned against Jeremy, they wouldn't be in the position that they're in right now of losing their jobs. But that's how bullies work, isn't it? We like it that Jeremy Corbyn is anti-war, anti-Trident. We like it that he will outstretch his hand to Vladimir Putin. We understand that the USA are the bully boys who have led us into wars, and we shouldn't have been in those wars at all. And we get it that people like Gaddafi are running a democracy that the USA didn't agree with, and so got rid of him because he wanted to change they wanted to change their currency and sell oil, not to the USA. We're aware of Snowden's Operation Hornet's Nest, and we're even getting it, or some of us are, that even Assad run a democratic government and were in the processes of change which excluded the USA from getting access to oil. I've researched this myself, and of course, as with all of these issues, there are always going to be the same story there over and over again where war is created, and also we see many articles refuting it as a conspiracy. But these wars are not a conspiracy, are they? And those leaders are being eliminated. Their history isn't as evil leaders, but democratic leaders in times of change. And we want a leader who will listen to Putin and what he's saying, as he's pointing out his finger at our government, who we know has sold arms to the Arabs in the Gulf, who says that America and the UK created ISIL. And we're hearing the man who Snowden ran to. People are not stupid. People are waking up to the truth, not the fiction that we see put in our newspapers like the Sun and the Daily Mail. And whilst all this craziness goes on by our own MPs actually thinking that they can get away with this misconception and manipulation of the British public, as Mr. Watson's proposals have been drafted out in detail, but his office are refusing to comment apparently, as they assess if they have the numbers to win the votes the NEC need, which is finely balanced between pro and anti-Corbyn supporters apparently. But Corbyn supporters are still growing by the day, and this, I'm refraining from using derogatory terms, these people, so-called MPs, so-called important people, will lose. They will lose. Tom Watson, however, clearly believes that he has a chance at creating an undemocratic Labour who have nothing but contempt for its membership, and they call themselves Progress. Mr. Watson said Ed Miliband made a terrible error of judgment by ditching the electoral college system and shadow cabinet elections. Ed Miliband introduced one member, one vote to elect Labour leaders in 2014, allowing MPs to elect the shadow cabinet, has huge support among the Parliamentary Labour Party, and the idea will be debated at this apparent meeting that they're going to be having. There needs to be a time limit on Mr. Watson's term as deputy leader, so that next time a woman maybe will be given one of the party's top two jobs. I believe that this is the plan which has put the fear up Tom Watson, and so he has upped his plan to cling on to his spot. Mr. Watson needs to also be stripped of the party's chairmanship that currently comes as part of the deputy leader role and should be handed to someone like Shadow Education Secretary Angela Rayner. Another thing that must happen, of course, the General Secretary Mr. McNichol and purging key staffers need to be forced out, as their role is clearly unhelpful while seeking to build bridges with MPs. And finally, an optimistic note, since there is so much negativity there. I started off on a really positive note. That doesn't change a thing. We are the people, we are, and we need to rise, and we need to know who we are. And on a totally optimistic note, as Jeremy Corbyn said, the flooding of new voters is proof of the optimism for change, and rightly so. Let's go with that. Cheers again. Thank you for listening to me rambling on. And I hope to speak to you soon again. Bye for now.